All right, I promised on the forum I would make a video about some of the keyboard commands and useful functions in ATCPro, but I feel lazy today. I don't want to do any video editing, or I'm just gonna do this as kind of a delayed live stream, try to talk you through what I think has been the problem for some people, and see if we can sort it out in a quick and dirty video. And if it's too horrible, I just won't publish it, and if I feel like I don't have to be too ashamed, I will post it. Okay, so the thing with the manual here is it may look very confusing. There's a lot of things you should type, and it could be kind of unclear whether you should I type these commas, does it need to be a space between them, and sometimes you have probably been testing the exact correct command. You've been doing everything right, but you've been doing it at the wrong time. So let me try to explain that concept, because I don't think the manual talks about this at all. The game window, the terminal controller window, has different modes that it can be in, or maybe states. Maybe states is a better name. And so to talk about this concept, I'm gonna show you how you can change the zoom level on the display, or the range of the radar scope, with the help of the keyboard. Not an extremely useful function in itself, but it's going to show you a concept. If we're looking at the manual here, I've underlined here Shift F3 range and a number, and enter change display range. Now Shift F3 equals a button on a real air traffic controller's keyboard. They would have a button that's called range. Obviously normal keyboard doesn't have a range button, so Shift F3 kind of simulates the range button on an air traffic controller, a STARS keyboard. Okay, so let's press Shift F3 here in the console. And once that is done, all input to this console, the game is expecting that to be valid zoom levels, range levels. So if I press 150 and hit enter, we are zooming this out. Now the range mode or range state that we are in now is persistent, so next number will also be interpreted as a new range. So I'm gonna type 20. I'm gonna see that we did a heavy zoom in here. Okay, so in this while we've activated the range state, all inputs are considered to be range inputs. So many of the commands in the manual here that tells you how to do a J circle or a TPA cone or a minimal separation, or they don't work. They simply do not work because they are not ranges. So we need a way to take us out of the range state and go into a normal state. And we have that here. There's a clear button on a STARS keyboard, which is simulated in the game by hitting Shift and Backspace. That will escape from current function or menu is what it does. So if I do that here out in the terminal controller window now, Shift and Backspace. Now once that is done, if I type a number again, 150, and enter, you will see that it doesn't change the range, even though the range button up, oh, you can't see the range button, can you? Because the manual is in the way here. The range button is still activated, but you're not in range in the range state anymore. And it's true the other way around as well. If we go back into range state with the keyboard, pressing Shift F3, and then I unclick this, we are still in range state. So if I type something 20, like 150 again, we're gonna zoom out. So whether this is clicked or unclicked has absolutely nothing to do with whether you are in the range state or not. You are in range state as long as you don't activate another state or you clear the state with Shift Backspace. So let's take a look at something else here. We have all these weather overlays, and I have activated number 2 through 6, but not number 1. If you look in the manual, you'll see that you change these with F3 without a shift, so just standard function key number 3. If I press F3 and 1 and hit enter, I'm gonna turn this weather map on. Oops, I moved out of the DCB. Let's do that again. F3, 1 and enter, and it turned this one on. This menu, however, is not persistent. So if I press 1 and enter again, it's not going to uncheck this one. Let's try. Now we're just in the normal state again. So if we want to change more of these or turn it back off, we need to press F3 again. So for every time, if we want to turn all of these, let's say we want to turn off number 1 to 3, we will have to press F3 1 enter, F3 2 enter, F3 3 enter, while the range is persistent. And there's no way of telling that either. So first of all, you don't know in which state am I now, and you will need to learn which states are persistent or not, or you will just make a habit of prefacing all inputs by making sure to put the console, the terminal controller in the right state. So we can set the range back to 46. And we're gonna log into North Departures here in Miami, and that is also, the login is also a state, which you can activate with Shift and F12. So I'll do that first. Now I pressed Shift and F12. You can't see that I did, but I did. Now the game expects the input to be my initials, a space, and the initials of the sector I want to log into, the sector, I think it's called, whatever. So I press AO, a space and 1D, and hit enter.
71, climate maintain 7,000.
I'm gonna remove
maintain 7,000, 21, 71.
some of these planes because I don't have time to talk to them anyway. Okay. So the login state is not persistent. So now we are back to some kind of normal state here. In the normal state, you can accept handoffs and do handoffs. That's kind of a default function in the normal state. But if you want to do something extra, like handing something over to a specific sector, you're gonna have to use the function key 8, F8, to put the game in a real handoff mode. And once you've done that, that mode is also one of the persistent modes. So let's say I've recently pressed F8 here. Now there's a command that could put up a circle around this guy. To do that command, all you do is you press *J and the distance you want to have on the circle. So I'm gonna do *J free. And this time it's not gonna work, and I'll explain why. See, we typed *J free here. Now I'm gonna press the plane. And it says ill position. So was there something wrong with my command? No, there wasn't. The command was fine, but the game was expecting this to be a valid handoff action, and it wasn't. But if I clear out of the handoff state by pressing Shift backspace, and now I type the same thing again, and click the plane, and we now have the circle. So a lot of these commands, they have to take place in the right state. Do handoffs in the handoff state, do the J ring in the regular, normal, default, whatever state. Sometimes the game is nice to you. For example, if you are in the handoff state and you press something that is invalid, the game actually takes you out of handoff state. So if I were to do this again, let's just turn this off first. I put the game back in handoff mode now, and I'm gonna type *J free, and it's not gonna work. It says ill position, but if I try the exact same thing again without doing anything, it should work. And this is because any time that you're in handoff state and you're giving it invalid input, you actually are thrown out of that state and into the normal state. So the second time you try the exact same command, it will work. But to save yourself from having to do it twice, you could just use the clear function, the Shift and backspace, to make sure that you're in the right mode from the beginning, so it will work. A good idea may be to bind this. If you have a gaming mouse, why don't you put one function on one button to be like first pressing Shift backspace to clear out of every special state, and that then presses *J free and hits enter. That way, with a single button and a click on the plane, you would put up a circle and it will always be there no matter what state the game was in before. That will save you a lot of time. Or if you have a gaming keyboard that you use for Fortnite or World of Warcraft or whatever, that you have an extra kind of keys, why don't you use them, print out some labels and put up these modes, because it feels it's a lot easier when you kind of push a button that says range rather than trying to remember that you hit Shift F3 and so forth. So that's the circle. You can remove it by *J. That takes it away, or change it to any other size like *J 5.7. Give you a larger circle. Don't know why you would want a 5.7 circle, but you can make one. Okay. TPA cones, same thing with them. The command for them is *P and the distance. Let's do that. You can't have circles and TPA cones at once, so it removed the circle and put up a TPA cone instead. The TPA cone is useful when you are lining several aircraft up for they're coming in here. You want to line them and have them spaced a certain distance, for example 5 nautical miles apart. then you can easily see how far that is. And there will also be a marker if there would actually be a if this plane was on final and it had an airplane in front of it, there would be a little text here showing you the distance to that plane, so you could easily see if it's diminishing or if it's growing, and you can give speed commands to kind of get the separation you are out after, you want. What am I saying? You can get the distance that you're trying to achieve. Okay, so this is probably why some of the commands you've read in the manual and you tried them and it didn't work. It's probably because you were in the wrong state all the time. So these lists, let's talk about these lists, for example. This is showing now the departure list for Miami, and it can be turned on or off with the multifunction key, which is F10, I believe, and then P and then the number. So I'm going to hit F10 P1 enter. And that turns that off. If I now type P1 again, nothing happens, or just 1. Nothing happens. So that also is not a persistent mode. If you want to turn it back on, you have to press F10 again and F10 P1. That brings the list back up. This of course also only works in the default state. So if I were in the range state and I did that, that actually did work. So sometimes the multifunctions, let's put a manual back up. The special key here, multifunc, that may very well work even if you happen to be in a special state. So I was able to turn the lists on or off, but other things would not have been I wouldn't have been able to do them. So if you're trying something out in the manual that you think it would be an interesting feature for you to use and it seems like it isn't working, try escaping out of the current mode, or try to see if they belong under some kind of category of commands that you would expect to work only in a certain mode, and then go into that mode. But most commands are actually given in the standard position, standard state. So that's, I think that is that. Or did I talk about? No, I didn't. I don't think I did. I may have already gone through this, but in case I haven't, let's talk about one more, and that's the home key. If you press the home key on your keyboard, you will activate this menu, which changes the size of text. Here on data blocks, let's put one data block up. If you press 1 now and enter, you get really small text. And if you press 5, back to large text. To jump through this menu, you use the spacebar. So one click on spacebar, now you are changing, by typing a number, you're changing the list size. Now we have small lists. Okay. Next spacebar takes you to the next, so on and so forth. I think the same is true for the bright menu, that when you're in there you can jump around and change the different settings. So those modes are obviously persistent because you need to be able to jump and type numbers. So when you want out of that, make sure to hit the clear button if you have set one up on your mouse or keyboard, or shift and backspace to get you out back to the normal state. So I hope this makes some difference to you and you are able now to explore some of the commands in the manual on your own. Good luck.
Miami departure, good evening, Lufthansa 4